The conference room in Geneva had become a war room. Maps covered the walls and dozens of experts from every nation worked around the clock. They had 48 hours left before Earth had to give the Velkari an answer. Daehyun had barely slept. He stood in front of a large screen displaying the Protection Treaty. The document was incredibly complex, written in precise language that seemed designed to hide its true meaning. Every time they thought they understood a section, they found another layer underneath. Sujin Kang, a diplomatic relations specialist who had spent 20 years negotiating international treaties, rubbed her tired eyes. This is the most complicated document I've ever seen, and I've read every trade agreement the UN has ever produced. What have you found so far? Daehyun asked. Sujin pulled up a list on her tablet. Article 7 states that Earth must surrender all weapons development to Union oversight. That means no new military technology without their approval. Article 12, another diplomat added, requires us to submit our laws to Union review. They have the power to veto any law they consider disruptive to galactic harmony. Daehyun felt his jaw tighten. So they control our military and our laws. What else? Space exploration, Hyejin said, walking into the room with a coffee cup in her hands. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. We can only explore space in zones they designate. The rest of the galaxy is off limits without Union permission. And the technology they promised us? Daehyun asked. Hyejin laughed, but there was no humor in it. We get access to a limited catalog of approved technologies. Nothing that could be used for weapons. Nothing that could give us independence from Union systems. We would become completely dependent on them. Across the city, Minho Choi was having more success with a different approach. He was a cyber intelligence officer, one of the best hackers in the world. While the diplomats studied the treaty, Minho was studying the data file itself. The Velkari had sent the treaty as a compressed data package. Standard procedure would be to simply open it and read it. But Minho wasn't interested in what they wanted humans to see. He wanted to know what they were trying to hide. He had been working for 36 hours straight and he had found something interesting. The data file had layers. The treaty was just the surface. Underneath were reference files, historical records, and communications logs that the Velkari probably didn't mean to include. Got it, Minho whispered to himself. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he extracted the hidden data. What he found made his blood run cold. He immediately called Daehyun. You need to see this now. 10 minutes later, Daehyun, Hyejin, and Jiho were crowded around Minho's workstation. On the screen were files the Velkari definitely had not meant to share. These are records of other species that were offered Union membership, Minho explained. I found 47 species that refused to join. What happened to them? Hyejin asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Minho pulled up astronomical data. I cross-referenced these species' homeworld locations with our deep space observations. He displayed a series of images. Every single one shows signs of massive orbital bombardment. These worlds were destroyed. The room went silent. Jiho leaned closer to the screen. Are you certain? Completely. Look at this one. Minho zoomed in on an image. This planet's surface was glassed from orbit. The entire crust was melted. Nothing could survive that. Hyejin felt sick. They destroyed entire civilizations just for refusing to join? It gets worse, Minho said. He pulled up communication logs. According to these internal messages, the Velkari refer to independent species as chaos agents and threats to galactic stability. Any species that advances without Union control is considered a threat. Daehyun stood up straight. So there is no external threat. The Union is the threat. Exactly, Minho said. This isn't protection. It's a protection racket. Join us or we destroy you. Jiho was reading through the files. Look at this. Species that do join are... The word they use is integrated. Their technology is limited, their growth is controlled, and they pay tribute to the Union forever. Tribute? Hyejin asked. Resources, labor, soldiers, Jiho said. Every member species contributes to maintaining the Union fleet, and that fleet is used to force other species to join or be destroyed. Daehyun felt anger building inside him. He had spent his entire life fighting for freedom and defending the innocent. The idea that an entire galactic civilization was built on fear and oppression made him furious. We need to confront them with this, he said. Sujin looked worried. If we reveal that we know, they might attack immediately. Maybe, Daehyun said, but I need to look that ambassador in the eye and hear him try to justify this. They requested an emergency meeting with Ambassador Thelrin. The alien appeared in the UN Assembly Hall 2 hours later, his crystal form glowing with confidence. Have you reached a decision? Thelrin asked. We have questions first, Daehyun said. He displayed the images of destroyed worlds on the main screen. We found your historical records. We know what happened to species that refused your offer. The ambassador's glow dimmed slightly. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke, and his voice was colder than before. Those species made unfortunate choices. They invited chaos and endangered the galactic order. They wanted to remain free, Hyejin said. That's not chaos. That's independence. Independence is an illusion for young species, Thelrin said. You lack the wisdom to govern yourselves properly. You fight wars. You destroy your environment. You create weapons that could annihilate your own kind. The Union brings order to this chaos. By destroying anyone who refuses? Jiho asked. By maintaining peace for the greater good, the ambassador replied. The needs of the many outweigh the desires of the few. Every species that has joined the Union has benefited. You will too once you accept our guidance. Daehyun stepped forward. And if we refuse? Thelrin's form seemed to grow larger. Then you will face the same fate as the others. The Union cannot allow chaos agents to threaten galactic stability. You have 24 hours remaining. Choose wisely. The ambassador vanished, leaving the assembly in shocked silence. Back in the war room, the team gathered to assess their situation. Sujin looked defeated. What can we do? Their technology is centuries beyond ours. If we refuse, they'll destroy us. Maybe not, Hyejin said. She had been quiet since the meeting, staring at her tablet. I've been analyzing their ships, their technology, their behavior. They're powerful, yes, but they have weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Daehyun asked. They're predictable, Hyejin said. Everything they do follows established protocols. They're bureaucratic, hierarchical, and they've been the dominant power for so long that they've forgotten how to face real resistance. Jiho nodded slowly. They expect us to either submit or die quickly. They've never fought a species that refused to do either. Exactly, Hyejin said. And there's something else. Did you notice how the ambassador reacted when we showed him we had hacked their files? He was surprised, maybe even shocked, Minho smiled. They didn't think we could break their encryption. Their security is built for species that think like them. They're not ready for human creativity. Daehyun looked at each of them. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying we fight, Hyejin said. We can't win a conventional war. But humans have never fought conventional wars when we're outmatched. We fight dirty, we adapt. We survive. And we inspire others, Jiho added. If we can hurt them even a little, other species might find courage to resist too. Daehyun felt something he hadn't felt in days. Hope. It was a desperate, dangerous hope, but it was real. Then we need to prepare, he said. We have 24 hours to get ready for war. The team got to work. They had 1 day to prepare Earth for a battle against an enemy that had conquered 847 civilizations. It should have been impossible. But humanity had built its entire history on doing the impossible. The underground command center in Geneva was filled with screens showing military bases, space stations, and cities around the world. Every leader on Earth was connected to this room. They had 6 hours left before the deadline expired. Daehyun stood at the center of it all, looking at the faces on the screens. He saw fear, anger, and confusion. Some leaders still wanted to accept the Velkari offer. Better to be slaves than dead, they argued. Others were ready to fight, even if it meant extinction. We need to vote, the German chancellor said. We're running out of time. Before we vote, Daehyun said, I want everyone to understand what we're really choosing between. This isn't safety versus danger. It's slavery versus freedom. He displayed the files Minho had recovered, images of destroyed worlds, records of species that had been integrated into the Union and lost everything that made them unique. Communication showing how the Velkari viewed other species as resources to be managed, not equals to be respected. If we accept, Daehyun continued, humanity will never build another warship, never explore space freely, never make our own decisions. Our children will grow up in a cage. It might be a comfortable cage, but it's still a cage. The French president spoke up, and if we refuse, they'll destroy us. You've seen what they did to other worlds. Maybe, Hyejin said, stepping forward. But maybe not. I've spent the last 24 hours studying everything we know about the Velkari. Yes, they're more advanced, but they have weaknesses. She pulled up tactical data on the main screen. Their ships are powerful but slow. Their weapons are devastating but require charging time. They fight in formations that haven't changed in thousands of years. They're not prepared for an enemy that thinks differently. Taijin Yun, the military innovation director, took over the presentation. For the past day, every military research facility on Earth has been working on a crash program. We can't match their technology, but we don't need to. We just need to hurt them badly enough that the cost of conquering Earth becomes too high. He showed designs for weapon systems that had been theoretical until yesterday. Kinetic bombardment platforms that would turn Earth satellites into missiles. Nuclear-pumped lasers that could be fired once before burning out, but would deliver massive energy in that single shot. Swarm drone tactics that could overwhelm their targeting systems. We've also been working on something special, Minho said with a grim smile. A computer virus designed specifically for Velkari systems. We've studied their technology from the data they sent us. They're networked, they're organized, and they trust their systems completely. This virus will introduce chaos into that order. Jiho added, and we're not doing this blindly. Every weapon we deploy, every tactic we use will be broadcast across every frequency we can reach. We want the entire galaxy to watch. We want every enslaved species to see that the Velkari can bleed. The Japanese Prime Minister looked troubled. Even if we hurt them, they can still destroy us. Is dying defiantly really better than surviving as subjects? Daehyun let the question hang in the air for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was firm. My grandfather fought in a war for freedom. He could have surrendered, could have accepted occupation, could have lived a quiet life serving foreign masters. Instead, he fought. Many of his friends died. But because they fought, his children grew up free. He looked directly at the camera. Every person on Earth deserves the chance to make their own choices, forge their own path, and reach for the stars on their own terms. If we give that up now, we give it up forever. Our children will never know what it means to be truly free. I can't accept that. I won't accept that. The room fell silent. Leaders looked at each other across the screens. Finally, the American president spoke. Let's vote. The vote took 10 minutes. When it was done, 73% of Earth's governments had voted to refuse the Velkari offer. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. Young Mi Han, the communications director, looked at Daehyun. So we're really doing this? We're really doing this, Daehyun confirmed. Prepare the broadcast. 1 hour before the deadline, Young Mi activated every communication system on Earth. The message would be sent on every frequency, in every language, broadcast to the Velkari and to anyone else who might be listening. She gave Daehyun the signal. He stepped in front of the camera and began to speak. To the Velkari Union and to all species in the galaxy who can hear this message, Earth has made its decision. We decline your offer of protection. We choose to remain free. In orbit above Earth aboard the Velkari command ship, Ambassador Thelron received the message. His crystal form flickered with what might have been disbelief. This is illogical. They are choosing extinction. Daehyun continued his broadcast. You came to our world offering safety. But we asked a simple question. Protection from what? And we learned the truth. The only thing you're protecting us from is yourselves. The ambassador immediately opened a communication channel. His image appeared on screens across Earth. You are making a grave mistake. Reconsider while you still can. Daehyun looked directly at the alien's image. We've reconsidered. Our answer is still no. You've conquered 847 civilizations by giving them a choice between slavery and death. We're offering you a third option. Leave Earth alone and let us find our own way in the galaxy. That option does not exist, Thelron said coldly. The Union maintains order. Chaos cannot be permitted. If you will not join us, you will be removed. Then come and try, Daehyun said. But understand this. We won't fight like the others. We won't line up our ships for you to destroy. We won't follow your rules or meet you in honorable battle. We'll fight like humans. We'll use every dirty trick, every desperate tactic, every ounce of creativity we possess. And we'll make sure the entire galaxy watches what happens when you try to enslave a free people. The ambassador's form pulsed with anger. You condemn your species to annihilation. We commit our species to freedom, Hyejin said, stepping beside Daehyun. That's something you stopped understanding millions of years ago. Thelron's image disappeared. A moment later, new contacts appeared on Earth's tracking systems. 300 Velkari warships had just entered the solar system. Jiho studied the readings. That's the largest fleet they've ever assembled for a punitive mission. They're not taking any chances. Good, Daehyun said. The bigger the fleet, the bigger the audience when we make them bleed. He activated the command channel connecting him to every military installation on Earth. All stations. This is Commander Kim. The Velkari fleet will reach Earth in 72 hours. You know what to do. Make every second count. Make every shot matter. And above all, make sure that when they write the history of this day, they remember that humanity refused to kneel. Across Earth, military bases activated. Weapons that had been theoretical yesterday were now being deployed. Soldiers who had trained for wars against other humans now prepared to face an alien empire. Scientists worked frantically to complete systems that had never been tested. In orbit, space stations that had been built for research became fortresses. Satellites that had broadcast television signals were being converted into kinetic weapons. The moon's industrial facilities began mass-producing weapons as fast as their factories could operate. Hyejin stood beside Daehyun, watching the preparations on the main screen. You know we might lose. Yes, Daehyun said. But we'll lose free. And that matters. Does it matter if we're all dead? Daehyun thought about that for a long moment. There are things worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. But I don't plan on dying. I plan on winning. How do we win against 300 ships? We don't have to destroy them all, Daehyun explained. We just have to make victory too expensive. If we can hurt them badly enough, if we can show the galaxy that resistance is possible, then we've won something even if Earth falls. Youngmi approached with a tablet. Sir, we're receiving signals from deep space. Encrypted transmissions. Someone else is watching. Can you decode them? Jiho asked. Not yet, but they're using frequencies that aren't Velkari. I think other species are paying attention. Daehyun smiled. Good. Let's give them a show worth watching. The clock counted down. 72 hours until the Velkari fleet arrived. 72 hours to prepare for a battle that would decide humanity's fate. But somewhere in the back of his mind, Daehyun knew that the real battle wasn't just for Earth's survival. It was for something bigger. Every enslaved species in the galaxy would be watching. And if humanity could show them that resistance was possible, even against impossible odds, then maybe the Velkari Empire would finally face the one thing it had never encountered before: hope. The fleet was coming. Earth was ready. The war for freedom was about to begin. The sky above New York City turned purple at exactly 3:47 p.m. Daehyun Kim was in his office at the United Nations building when every screen, every phone, and every electronic device on Earth displayed the same message in every known language. The message was simple, and we come in peace. We wish to speak with your leaders. Within minutes, massive spacecraft appeared over every major city on the planet. They were unlike anything humanity had ever built or imagined. The ships were enormous, each one at least 3 miles long, made of some material that seemed to shift between silver and gold. They just floated there, silent and waiting. Daehyun had served in the military for 20 years before becoming the UN Secretary General's chief military advisor. He had planned for wars, terrorist attacks, and natural disasters, but he had never planned for this. His hands were steady as he picked up the secure phone line that connected him directly to world leaders. Across the city, Hyejin Park was running toward her laboratory at Columbia University. She was one of Earth's leading astrophysicists, and she had been part of the first contact protocol team for 5 years. It was a job she never thought she would actually need to do. The protocol was supposed to be theoretical. Now it was very real. Her equipment was already scanning the ships, and what she saw made her heart race. The energy readings were off the charts. These vessels were using technology that was centuries beyond anything humans had developed, maybe thousands of years beyond. By the time the sun set, every major government had sent representatives to the United Nations. Jiho Lee, the intelligence director for the Global Defense Initiative, sat in the Emergency Security Council meeting. He had spent the last 3 hours reviewing every piece of data they had on the ships. His conclusion was troubling. If these aliens wanted to destroy Earth, there was absolutely nothing humanity could do to stop them. The aliens made their move at midnight. A beam of light appeared in the center of the UN Assembly Hall and a figure materialized. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The alien was tall, at least 8 feet, and its body seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but that was where the similarity to humans ended. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I am Ambassador Thelrin of the Velkari species. We have come to offer your world a great gift. Daehyun watched from the observation deck. His military training told him to look for weapons, for threats, for any sign of hostility. But the alien seemed genuinely peaceful. That somehow made him more nervous. For millions of years, the ambassador continued, the Galactic Union has maintained peace across 847 civilized species. We explore the cosmos, we share knowledge, we protect the innocent, and now we offer Earth membership in this great federation. Holographic images filled the air above the assembly. They showed beautiful alien worlds, cities that defied imagination, technology that seemed like magic, ships traveling between stars, medicines that could cure any disease, clean energy that could power entire planets. With membership comes benefits, Thelron said. We will share our technology. We will cure your diseases. We will end your poverty and hunger, and most importantly, we will offer you protection. That word hung in the air. Protection. Daehyun felt his instincts screaming at him. He stood up and spoke into his communicator. Get me down there now. 5 minutes later, he was on the assembly floor. The various nations were already arguing about whether to accept. Some were practically begging to join immediately. Others were more cautious. But no one was asking the obvious question. Daehyun walked to the microphone. Ambassador Thelron, I have a question. The crystal being turned toward him, its face unreadable. Yes, you offer us protection. That's very generous. But I need to know. Daehyun paused, making sure every person in the room was listening. Protection from what? The chamber went silent. For the first time, the ambassador seemed uncomfortable. Its crystal form flickered slightly like a television with poor reception. From the dangers of the galaxy, Thelrin said. Space is vast and full of threats. Pirates, aggressive species, cosmic phenomena. The Union ensures that all member worlds are safe from these dangers. That's not really an answer, Daehyun said calmly. What specific threat are you protecting us from? The galaxy is dangerous, the ambassador repeated. Without protection, young civilizations often fall to these dangers. The Union has maintained peace for millions of years. We know what is best. Hyejin had made her way into the assembly hall. She caught Daehyun's eye and gave him a small nod. She had heard it too. The alien was being deliberately vague. The Russian ambassador spoke up. What do you want in return for this protection? Simply your cooperation, Thelrin said. You would need to follow Union protocols, accept our guidance, and contribute to the common good of all species. And if we refuse? Asked the Chinese representative. The ambassador's form seemed to grow dimmer. That would be unfortunate. Isolation is dangerous. Species that refuse Union protection often face dire consequences. The galaxy is not kind to those who stand alone. Jiho Lee stood up from his seat. That sounds like a threat. It is a warning, Thelrin corrected. We have seen countless species destroy themselves or fall to external threats because they refused our help. We only wish to prevent such tragedy from befalling Earth. The debate continued for hours. The ambassador answered questions, but his answers were always vague when it came to specifics. What exactly was the threat? Who were they being protected from? What did following protocols really mean? By dawn, the assembly was divided. Half wanted to accept immediately. The technology alone would solve so many of Earth's problems. The other half wanted more information. They wanted time to study the situation, to understand what they were really agreeing to. The ambassador agreed to give humanity 72 hours to review the protection treaty. He transmitted a massive data file containing the full terms and conditions. Then he vanished in another beam of light. Daehyun, Hyejin, and Jiho met in a secure conference room as the sun rose over New York. They looked exhausted, but determined. Something is wrong here, Daehyun said. No one offers this much for nothing. Hyejin pulled up the data file on her tablet. The treaty is thousands of pages long. It's going to take time to go through all of it. Then we better start now, Jiho said, because I have a very bad feeling about this. Outside, the alien ships continued to hover over Earth's cities. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Humanity had 72 hours to make a choice that would determine the future of their entire species. But first, they needed to find out what they were really being offered, and more importantly, what it would actually cost them. The clock was ticking. The Velkari fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Each ship was 3 miles long and bristled with weapons that could turn a planet's surface into glass. Admiral Corthan commanded the fleet from his flagship. He had served the Union for 2 centuries and had overseen the subjugation of 17 species. This should be simple. A show of force, a few orbital strikes, and the humans would beg to surrender. All ships maintain formation, Corthan ordered. Standard intimidation approach. Power weapons, but do not fire. Let them see what they face. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Every ship in its designated position. Every movement calculated and precise. This was how the Union had conquered the galaxy. Through overwhelming force, perfect order, and absolute discipline. On Earth, Daehyun watched the approaching fleet on the tactical display. Next to him, Jiho coordinated the defense forces while Hyejin monitored their systems. "They're doing exactly what you predicted," Hyejin said. "Same formation they've used for thousands of years." "They have no reason to change," Daehyun replied. "It's always worked before. They don't know that humans study our enemies. We learn from every fight, even the ones we lose." He opened the command channel. "All stations execute Phase 1. Around Earth, thousands of satellites activated." They weren't military satellites. Most were communication relays, weather monitors, and GPS systems. But over the past 72 hours, every single one had been equipped with small rocket motors. The Velkari fleet was still 2 million miles from Earth when the satellites began moving. At first, Admiral Corthan didn't even notice them. They were tiny, insignificant objects. Then his sensors officer spoke up. "Admiral, we're detecting movement. Multiple small objects on intercept course." Corthan looked at the display. "What are they?" "Unknown. They appear to be primitive satellites. They're accelerating toward us." "Satellites?" Corthan almost laughed. "Ignore them. Continue approach," but the satellites weren't slowing down. They were accelerating, using every bit of fuel they had, and there were thousands of them moving at incredible speeds. "Admiral, collision warning. Impact in 30 seconds. Corthan finally understood. "Evasive action. Activate shields." But it was too late to dodge thousands of objects, and the Velkari shields, while powerful, weren't designed for this. The satellites, moving at thousands of miles per second, slammed into the fleet like bullets. Most of the satellites were destroyed on impact with the shields. But the shields had to absorb massive kinetic energy with each hit, and there were so many impacts, one after another. 3 Velkari ships lost shield power entirely. One took a satellite directly through its hull. The perfect formation scattered as ships took evasive action. "What just happened?" Corthan demanded. His tactical officer looked stunned. They turned their civilian satellites into kinetic weapons. We've never seen this tactic before." On Earth, Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. Phase 2, launch fighters. Salmon Bay led her squadron of fighters into space. They weren't like anything the Velkari had encountered before. Human fighters were small, fast, and crewed by pilots who could think and adapt in real time. The Velkari used automated systems that followed programmed responses. "All wings, stay close to the debris field," Soman ordered. "Use the satellite wreckage as cover." The human fighters darted through the expanding cloud of destroyed satellites, metal, and debris. Velkari ships tried to target them, but their sensors couldn't distinguish between fighters and wreckage. Every time they locked onto a target, it disappeared behind another piece of debris. "Attack pattern Delta," Somin called. "Hit and run. Don't stay in one place." The fighters emerged from the debris cloud and fired missiles at the nearest Velkari ship. The ship's shields absorbed the missiles easily, but that wasn't the point. The fighters disappeared back into the debris before the Velkari could return fire. "What are they doing?" Corthan wondered aloud. "Those attacks are too weak to penetrate our shields." Then Minho's virus activated. The Velkari ships were all networked together, sharing data and coordinates to maintain their perfect formations. This network was their strength. It was also their weakness. Minho's virus spread through the network in seconds. It didn't destroy systems or shut down ships. Instead, it introduced tiny errors. Navigation data shifted by small amounts. Friend or foe identification flickered. Targeting coordinates drifted slightly. "Admiral, we're experiencing system anomalies," the tactical officer reported. "What kind of anomalies?" "Small errors in multiple systems. Nothing critical, but they're spreading." Corthan frowned. "Run diagnostics. Find the source," but by then the virus had done its job. The Velkari fleet, which depended on perfect coordination, was now operating with unreliable data. Ships drifted out of formation. Weapons targeting became less accurate. That's when the real attack began. On the moon, Dongyun Nam commanded the mass driver installations. These were massive electromagnetic cannons that had been built to launch cargo into space. Now they were launching something else, refined metal ore at relativistic speeds. All batteries, fire, Donghyun ordered. Chunks of metal, each one weighing several tons, shot from the lunar surface at speeds approaching a significant fraction of light speed. The Valkyrie shields were designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles. They weren't designed for solid projectiles moving this fast. 3 Valkyrie ships exploded as the projectiles punched through their shields and hulls like paper. 2 more were crippled, their engines destroyed. Admiral Corthan stared at his display in disbelief. How is this possible? They're a pre-FTL species. They're using primitive weapons in ways we've never encountered, his tactical officer said. Our shields aren't calibrated for solid projectiles at these velocities. Recalibrate them then, and return fire. Destroy those lunar installations. The Valkyrie fleet finally opened fire. Massive energy beams struck the moon's surface, vaporizing entire sections of lunar base. But Donghyun had anticipated this. Evacuate to secondary positions, he ordered. All personnel to backup bunkers. The lunar bases weren't meant to survive. They were meant to do as much damage as possible before being destroyed. And they had succeeded. Earth's orbital platforms now activated. These were the last line of defense. Hyejin had designed them specifically to counter Valkyrie technology. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers ready, the platform commander reported to Daehyun. Fire at will, Daehyun ordered. Nuclear bombs detonated in space, their energy channeled through sophisticated mirrors to create focused X-ray laser beams. Each platform could only fire once before being destroyed by its own weapon. But that single shot carried enough energy to overwhelm even Valkyrie shields. 7 more. Valkyrie ships were destroyed or crippled. Corthan watched his fleet being torn apart by an enemy that shouldn't even be able to touch them. Full assault! Destroy everything. The orbital platforms, the fighters, the lunar bases. Show them the price of resistance. The Valkyrie fleet unleashed its full power. Energy beams lanced down toward Earth's orbit. Entire platforms were vaporized. Fighter squadrons were wiped out in seconds. The lunar bases were reduced to craters. But Samin and her surviving fighters kept fighting, darting through the battle like insects, too small and fast to swat easily. The lunar mass drivers, those that survived, kept firing, and every human weapon that was destroyed took Valkyrie ships with it. The battle raged for 6 hours. When Corthan finally ordered a retreat, he had lost 43 ships. 43 ships lost to a species that wasn't supposed to be able to fight back at all. Earth had taken heavy casualties too. Thousands of satellites destroyed, dozens of orbital platforms gone, 3 lunar bases completely wiped out. Millions of people had lost power as Valkyrie attacks damaged infrastructure. But Earth still stood. And more importantly, Earth had hurt the Valkyrie. In the command center, Daehyun watched the enemy fleet withdraw. Around him, his exhausted team started to cheer. We did it, Hyejin said, disbelief in her voice. We actually hurt them. Jiho was monitoring communications. Sir, we're picking up transmissions from the Valkyrie fleet. They're shocked. Some of them are arguing about whether to continue the attack. And the other signals? Daehyun asked. The ones from deep space? Youngmi looked up from her console. They're increasing. More species are watching now. A lot more. Daehyun nodded slowly. The first battle was over. Earth had survived, barely. But the war was just beginning. He opened a secure channel to all remaining forces. This is Commander Kim. Well done, everyone. The enemy has withdrawn, but they'll be back. Use this time to repair what you can and prepare for the next attack. Today we proved that humans can fight. Tomorrow we prove that humans can win. He closed the channel and looked at the tactical display. The Valkyrie fleet was regrouping at the edge of the solar system. They would attack again soon, and next time they would be prepared for human tactics. But something had changed. For the first time in millions of years, the Valkyrie Union had been forced to retreat, and across the galaxy, enslaved species had watched it happen. The war for Earth had just begun, but the war for the galaxy's freedom might have started too. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Sol. The Valkyrie fleet remained at the edge of the solar system, watching and waiting. But they had not attacked again, not yet. In the Velkari Union Council chambers, thousands of light years from Earth, the debate had been raging for weeks. The council members, representing dozens of senior species in the Union, were divided on what to do about the human problem. "We must destroy them immediately," one council member demanded. "Every day they survive emboldens other species to resist. And every ship we lose makes us look weak," another countered. 43 vessels destroyed by primitives. If we attack again and fail, the entire Union could collapse. Ambassador Thelrin stood before them, his crystal form dimmer than usual. He had been recalled from Earth to explain the defeat. "The humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They do not follow logical military doctrine. They sacrifice resources we would consider valuable. They use their own infrastructure as weapons. Then we will adapt," the council leader said. "We will send a larger fleet. 1,000 ships. 2,000 if necessary. Earth will fall." But before the vote could be taken, new information arrived. Reports from across Union space of technical malfunctions and unexplained delays in member worlds' tribute shipments. Nothing major yet, just small disruptions. But the pattern was concerning. On Earth, things were moving quickly. Youngmi had been working around the clock, broadcasting humanity's fight to the galaxy. She wasn't just showing the battles. She was telling Earth's story in a way that resonated across species lines. "Every species deserves freedom," her broadcasts declared. "Every civilization has the right to choose its own path. The Velkari Union claims to bring protection, but they really bring chains. Earth refuses those chains, and we invite every enslaved species in the galaxy to refuse them too." The broadcasts were being received. Seojin An, monitoring deep space communications, was picking up more and more encrypted signals from other species. "We're getting responses," Seojin reported to Daehyun. "Most are just watching. But some are reaching out. They want to know how we did it, how we fought back." One species in particular had been paying close attention. They called themselves the Korvathi, and they had accepted Union protection 100 years ago. It had been the worst decision in their history. A Korvathi named Ren managed to establish secure communication with Earth. His message was brief. "We want to help. What do you need?" Jiho handled the diplomatic contact personally. "We need information. Fleet movements, supply lines, Union protocols, anything that can help us predict their next move." "We can provide that," Ren replied. "But we need something from you too. Hope. Show us that the Union can be defeated. Show the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for." The Korvathi started sending intelligence data. It was invaluable. Heejin and her team learned that the Union was having trouble maintaining its fleet. The battle at Sol had destroyed more ships than the Union had lost in the previous century combined. Replacing them would take time and resources. More importantly, they learned about internal divisions. Not all Union species were happy with the arrangement. Many had joined out of fear, not loyalty, and now they were watching Earth prove that the Union could be resisted. Daehyun called a strategy meeting. "We can't just defend Earth forever. We need to think bigger." "What do you mean?" Yejin asked. "The Korvathi aren't the only ones watching us," Daehyun explained. "According to the intelligence data, there are at least 40 species in the Union that want out. They're afraid to act alone, but if we can coordinate them..." Jiho understood immediately. A simultaneous rebellion. "If multiple worlds refuse tribute at the same time, the Union can't suppress them all." "Exactly," Daehyun said. "We don't have to defeat the entire Union military. We just have to make it impossible for them to maintain control." Youngmi looked worried. "But if we encourage rebellion and it fails, we're responsible for what happens to those species." "And if we do nothing," Daehyun countered, "they remain enslaved forever. At least this way, they have a chance." The plan took shape over the following weeks. Using the Korvathi as intermediaries, Earth began quietly coordinating with resistance movements across Union space. They shared tactical information, encouraged small acts of sabotage, and most importantly, they shared their story. Earth wasn't just fighting for humanity anymore. They were fighting for the principle that all species deserved freedom. On one Union world, a manufacturing center producing warship components experienced a sudden malfunction. The components would still work, but they would fail 10% faster than expected. On another world, a fuel depot's storage systems developed a leak. Nothing dramatic, just a slow loss of resources. Across Union space, these small acts of resistance began to multiply. None of them were enough to stop the Union, but together they created strain on a system that had run smoothly for millions of years. The Velkari Council noticed. "Someone is coordinating this," a council member said. "The humans are building an alliance. Then we must strike now," another insisted. Before this rebellion spreads further, a massive Union fleet began to assemble. 2,000 warships, the largest military force the Union had ever gathered in one place. They would crush Earth and make an example that would terrify the galaxy back into submission. But the assembly process took time. And during that time, more species joined the quiet rebellion. The Kravathi sent a delegation of volunteers to Earth, bringing with them small ships and weapons. They couldn't match Union technology, but every bit helped. 17 species openly declared that they would no longer send tribute to the Union. They didn't have Earth's defensive capabilities, but they were counting on the Union being too busy with Earth to immediately punish them all. In the command center, Daehyun studied the intelligence reports. The massive Union fleet would arrive at Earth in 3 weeks. Even with the improvements and repairs they'd made, Earth couldn't survive an assault by 2,000 warships. "We need to change the equation," he said. "How?" Jiho asked. "We can't build 2,000 ships in 3 weeks. No, but we can make the Union question whether Earth is worth 2,000 ships. Hyejin understood what he meant. Economics. Every ship they send to Earth is a ship they can't use to suppress rebellions elsewhere. Every resource they spend trying to conquer us is a resource they can't use to maintain control. Daehyun nodded. "Youngmi, I need you to prepare a broadcast. Not to Earth this time, to the Velkari Council." The broadcast went out 3 days later. Daehyun appeared on every Union channel, his message simple but powerful. "To the Velkari Union Council, you are preparing to send 2,000 ships to destroy Earth. That's nearly 40% of your entire fleet. Do you understand what this means? It means Earth has already won." In the council chambers, the members watched in anger and confusion. Daehyun continued. "Every ship you send to Sol is a ship you can't use elsewhere. While your fleet gathers, 17 species have stopped paying tribute. How many more will stop when you're busy fighting us? How many rebellions can you suppress while your forces are committed to Earth?" He leaned forward, his expression intense. "You built your empire on fear. You maintained it by making conquest cheap and rebellion expensive. But we've changed that calculation. Now conquest is expensive, very expensive, and rebellion is starting to look affordable." Daehyun let that sink in. "You can destroy Earth, we know that. But it will cost you resources, time, and most importantly, credibility. Every day you spend fighting us is another day that enslaved species realize they can resist. Every ship you lose is proof that the Union can bleed." He stood up straight. "So here's our offer. Leave Earth alone. Reform the Union to allow genuine independence for member species. Let civilizations choose whether to join, and let them leave if they wish. Do that, and we'll work with you to build a real federation. One based on cooperation instead of coercion." The message ended. In the council chambers, silence reigned. "This is blackmail," one member finally said. "This is reality," another replied. "The humans have turned our own system against us. If we commit our fleet to Earth, we lose control everywhere else. If we don't, we look weak and lose control anyway." The debate raged for hours. Some council members wanted to destroy Earth no matter the cost. Others recognized that the humans had found a strategy that the Union couldn't counter with military force alone. On Earth, Daehyun waited for the response. He knew the Union would have to make a choice. Continue their empire based on fear and watch it crumble, or adapt to a new reality where freedom was an option. Hyejin stood beside him. "Do you think it will work?" "I think we've given them something they haven't had in millions of years," Daehyun said. "A problem they can't solve by destroying a planet. They have to actually think about consequences now. And if they choose to destroy us anyway?" Daehyun looked out at Earth, beautiful and fragile against the stars. "Then we'll die free, and the rebellion we've started will continue without us. Either way, the galaxy is changing. The Union's reign of fear is ending." Across Union space, enslaved species watched and waited, some prepared to fight, others prepared to hide. But all of them felt something they hadn't felt in a very long time. They felt hope, and hope, once ignited, is almost impossible to extinguish.